It is. Okay, it is 7:05 p.m. on Monday, January 3rd, 2022. Happy New Year, everybody. This is a meeting of the trustees of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust and will be conducted virtually using Zoom. Meeting information is on the posted agenda on the town website. The meeting is being recorded by the town. Anyone else desiring to record the meeting may do so only after notifying the chair and may not interfere with the conduct of the meeting in so doing. With that being said, first item on our agenda is public comment, and I don't see any members of the public here, so I'm going to assume that there's none. And we'll go to the second item, which is housing related status reports. I think the only thing that I would note is that Rebecca has scheduled a meeting on January 12th, I believe, to discuss with our contractor the timeline for 95 Lawrence Road. So with CDP and POA. And that's all I have that's housing related. Anyone else?
I can report that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kathleen.
I was just going to say, it seems as if we're having an executive session with the select board tomorrow night as well. Yes?
I believe so, since I was copied on it on the.
Yeah, that was, and I reached
yeah.
out to Ryan just to make sure that it wasn't going to go for more than an hour. And he said he thinks it'll be even less. So
Wow.
I said, good luck with that. But anyway, I'm not exactly sure, since I wasn't there on the 17th, as to how you guys left it, but it's in regards to the property we're talking about purchasing. So.
Yeah, I have nothing new to report on that, so I guess we'll all find out at the executive session. Gary, you had something?
I just wanted to report that the Community Preservation Committee met and we did make recommendations that will go on to the Springtown meeting for approval, but with regard to housing, the request for the buy down was at 210,000. And the amount approved was 185,000, which is actually where we have been.
Okay.
The second one is the request for the trust, which was approximately the 10% set aside, 74,000, and the amount approved was 35,000. We had a request that really fell under housing by Lily House. And the request there was for 92,000, and the amount recommended was 20,000. And the final one was from the CDP, and that was for 7,500 for the Housing Institute, which is in its 5th or 6th year, and the 7,500 was recommended. And the reason largely that the amounts approved were less than the amounts requested, that we had a lot of requests, but the big ticket item was funding for the new elementary school playground, which took up roughly 40% of all the funds available.
Not that I want to deliberate on this, but I wonder if it's possible for the trust to supplement the buy down appropriation to make it up to the 210,000 we had originally requested, so that it's a more meaningful subsidy.
We did discuss, Harry, that either from the trust or other sources or donations that we might increase that amount, but as a practical matter, this money isn't available until July 1st. We generally don't hold a buy down opportunity in the summertime when our buy down applicants are awfully busy, usually. and that this would likely be in the fall. So we have many months before we need to cross the bridge of how much we want to offer and if we want to supplement it. While we're on the subject, any update on the next buy down? I understood a house was, they agreed on a house and went through the inspection, and where is the status of it now, Kathleen?
The status is we're moving along. They're due to sign a purchase and sales agreement on Wednesday. I met the appraiser over there this morning, which was actually an interesting exercise for me because she doesn't appraise it based on other market rate properties. She appraises it based on deed restricted affordable properties because if it would be deed restricted even for the bank if they had to foreclose on it. So that was kind of interesting, but I can't imagine it won't appraise. I mean, it's in such a prime location and a cute little house.
Right.
There is likely asbestos insulation. So that has been sent out to see what mine it came from. So it's actually vermiculite insulation that potentially could have asbestos if it comes from a particular mine. So we're waiting to get the information back, but I don't see any reason that it won't move forward.
So Harry, just as an aside, if the buy down is imminent, when they get close to a closing date, we'll have to figure out how we can make a withdrawal from the new trust where the money was approved.
Yep, I am aware of that. And we're probably, if they're signing a PNS this week, we're probably 30 days away from closing roughly.
Yeah, February 4th. And the date is pretty important because the seller of this property is purchasing a condominium someplace else and wants the cash to do that.
So Kathleen, do we know the amount they're going to need of the buy down as opposed to any escrow for repairs?
I don't know the difference, Elaine. So you're saying like what money would she set aside to repair things in the house?
Well, in essence, we need to know the exact amount she needs for the closing. And ideally, we escrow 25,000 for repairs if needed, as needed.
So I think there are a fair amount of things that need repairs. I also think she's fairly connected and thinks that there are people that will be able to help her to do the repairs. Now, whether that means help her at a discounted rate or help her for free, I don't know. But it's an older house that the seller is a single older woman who has not necessarily, she's used it as a second home. I think they could move right in, but I think that there will be things to repair as time goes on. So I think it would maybe be up to you guys and how you want to do that.
Well,
It's sort of up to how much she needs to meet, we need an exact amount for sure.
So I'm not representing her, but I can reach out to Mandy and find out what she's, able to put in. I mean, we know that it's 464,200 is what she's paying. And she's putting $11,000 down. So she'll need to come up with, it looks like 454, but that's wrong. I'm seeing on the PNS.
453.
Yeah. But I don't know what her financial situation is to know whether, is she only putting 11,000 down because that's all she has and she needs the whole rest or what? I mean, obviously she's getting a mortgage.
It sort of depends on how much they were willing to do.
Yeah. Should I ask Mandy to be in touch?
Well, more importantly, Ann Robinson, who's a real estate attorney herself, as well as our administrator for the program, should be working closely with the buyer and the seller to come up with the closing sheet. which would specify the amounts and how much we need to hold in escrow. So I would say if they could get that to us in the next, if we need to do that by February 4th, if we can get that in the next 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, that would be great.
So the mortgage that she applied for is 289,200.
But we don't know how much will actually be approved.
I expect she'll be approved for the whole thing.
289,200.
Yep.
That leaves 164,000.
And that's the 11,000 for the down payment.
That includes
roughly.
credit for that.
Yeah. So maybe she will have, for the sake of argument, 14,000 available for repairs. And she'll need to, and she and Ann can work on specifying what those repairs are and how much they cost.
And when somebody gets the buy down information, are they given, like, does she know to be in touch with Ann? I feel like Mandy told me that Megan's been in touch with somebody, but I don't know who.
It would normally be Ann Robinson at CDP.
Okay,
Do you have that number?
I do not.
Five zero eight
Mm-hmm.
364 7013.
Okay,
And it's Ann Robinson at Community Development Partnership.
got it.
All set on this?
Good.
Anything else on any other reports?
I'll just say that we're making great strides on the website. We've had a couple of weeks off, but working with Barbara Woodbury is great. And so hopefully before too much longer, we'll have something to share with you. And we want to make sure it represents all three groups.
Okay, and that is kind of a segue into the next item because, Jim, go ahead.
I just wanted to report from after our last meeting when we discussed the idea of getting some assistance with fundraising strategies. One of the things that Sharon and I have been talking about is getting in touch with the folks at the Island Housing Trust out on Martha's Vineyard. There's a lot of information available online for them and some really great promotional materials that they put together. And I think that it's worth our while to have a discussion with them. So Sharon and I will be doing that. We also may enlist the support of someone outside of the Housing Trust here, and that would be Susan Spear, who is someone who both Sharon and I are familiar with. So we will keep you informed. So I was really impressed with what I saw online available for the Island Housing Trust. So good.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Can I go back to one thing, Harry?
Yep.
Kathleen, in the critical path for the buy down closing, it has to be approved by DHCD. So if you have a closing date of the 4th, they want to make sure that Ann Robinson is working on that right now, because it unfortunately takes several weeks for them to act, and they have to actually approve the specific purchase, both the amount.
So, I mean, randomly, I happen to be here and involved in that, but
Right.
who is normally like feeding that information? Because I suspect whoever was be doing that is doing it still, yes?
Yes, usually it would be the lottery recipient, the award recipient working through Ann Robinson at CDP.
Okay,
But it's
I'll
Ann.
confirm that it's happening.
Right, Ann has to go to DHCD to get it approved.
Okay,
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Next item is acceptance of online donations to the trust, and Gary sent me a link to a site that I guess Barbara Woodbury had worked on before as a possible example. Am I correct there, Gary?
No, I'm
No?
not sure she did. This is the
Okay.
Outer Cape Health
Hmm.
donation site. Can you put it up, Harry, or
Yeah,
I can,
let's see. See if I can find it without having to
I
open
can
my
give the
email.
link to people. But anyway, we were looking at this as a potential model. So I wanted to get feedback from folks. It really is, it's simple. It's, I thought, well organized. It covers the possibilities of RMD donations and other things, as well as has a modest online donation capability. So just go under giving, Harry.
Yep, I got it.
Okay,
So you should see it. So
ways to give, yeah.
the picture's nice, but
Right.
here's the part that we probably are more interested in.
Right.
Yeah. And, these are all, I guess, tried and true techniques.
Mhm.
The qualified deductions from your IRA is kind of an interesting one, because if you have an IRA and if you're over 74 and a half, you're required to take a minimum distribution. And you can instruct the person or entity that administers your IRA to cut checks directly to charities, which reduces the amount you have to take as a minimum distribution, and therefore reduces the amount of, it's basically a way of taking a deduction for the charitable deductions, even if if your tax situation doesn't allow you to itemize deductions. And I discovered that in November and took advantage of it last year.
As I did. I would say that not all IRAs qualify, so you got to check on the one that you have, but most of them do, number one, and it couldn't be simpler, at least on the major sites, Fidelity and whatnot, to make that donation. And if you're actually doing it, for those of us that have reached that point in your life, the equation is how much money you have divided by your life expectancy. So as you get older and your life expectancy decreases, the amount you have to take is greater.
Yep.
The incentive to give some of it away is even greater.
Yep.
And if you hit the donate now button, does that take you to some place where you could make like a credit card donation or something?
Yes, we'll go there in a second, but I think
Okay.
These are just, these are fairly standard, and it's they're easily defined, or they're well defined. And at the end of the day, it really is, if you have something out of the ordinary, cause.
Mm-hmm.
But can you go to how to make a donation? Click here, Harry.
How to donate.
Click here. Yep.
Okay, we'll see if I can see if my browser passes.
Oh, there you go. So then here it is, and they actually use a third-party service,
Mm-hmm.
which we can or cannot use. But Harry, the key is how the town will accept these donations, accept and track, or track and accept these donations.
Typically, stuff like this comes in, as a wire transfer, an electronic transfer.
Right.
So I don't know what, specific processors do in terms of telling the recipient where the money came from. I can remember spending time running around town hall trying to find out who was expecting a $2,300 wire transfer, because things just show up with no information.
Mhm.
But it's a known problem. there is a, there's a way to deal with it.
So, Harry, any sense of, are we closer to having either a treasurer or an accountant or somebody to work with on this?
I have not heard since my conversation with Charlie Sumner on December 14th. And at that point, he told me that, they knew we had some things coming up that had timing issues, and he was working very hard on it, but he didn't give me a specific date. So I don't have anything new to report on that. But I think we should, I think that this is a good thing, and that this type of thing is, it's important to have an online portal where you can get donations, because that's the way a lot of people want to do their business these days.
Yep.
Harry?
Yep.
I was contacted recently by someone who wants to do maybe the distributions. And, they couldn't find anything on the town website about the trust. So I think just like the Housing Authority and the Local Housing Partnership are identified on the website, I don't think we are yet, are we?
We are under boards and committees, but that's the only place.
Right. But do all they really need to do that is the town's tax, the IN number or whatever it is called?
They need whatever routing information, is necessary to transfer funds. Gary?
You don't actually need either of those, Harry, for the RMD.
Right.
All you do is the name, Housing Trust, and the address, 300 Main Street.
Right.
And there's a note place, and you want to make sure you put your name and the donation to the trust in there, because when it gets to town hall, they'll have no idea who it comes from or where it's going to.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead, Elaine.
I'm sorry, these people were not happy with just that information. They felt like they needed more. So I'm just, it feels, I'd like to be able, to be confident when someone asks to tell them what to do.
Yeah, and I did have a request from someone for a balance sheet or an audited financial statement, and I had to tell them that we're in the process of doing our first audit. We don't have one yet, so I don't have anything to give you, but I think it'll be okay. I do know when I did the distributions from my IRA, I asked my financial advisor to cut the checks and actually mail them to me, and I sent them to the charities with a note. So, but
I noticed on this one, under the distributions, it did give the tax number. So that's why I'm wondering if if that's certainly something we can pass on when someone asks about that.
Yeah, see, I think this information, we'd have to be able to provide that.
Oh, I see. Right. Yeah.
It would be ideal if we had a button on the town website that linked to this, that people could say, how do I donate? And it would be fairly easy. But you're right. I have also had a number of questions about electronic transfers and how to do them. And each one was handcrafted, which is, not a great way to handle them.
It doesn't instill confidence.
No, and it takes way too much.
Yeah, and it is clear that that contributions to government units are are tax deductible as long as they're made for a public purpose, which affordable housing certainly is.
Right.
So there's an Internal Revenue Code section that explicitly says that. In
I looked
language
at that
that's human
section.
in language that's human understandable too, actually.
Really? I
Yeah.
thought maybe I was looking at the wrong section because I didn't see where it actually said that.
Says charitable contributions to government units are tax deductible under IRC section 170 sub C sub 1 if made for a public purpose. That's from an IRS information letter.
Okay.
And actually, the Internal Revenue Code pretty much says exactly that.
Okay.
At any rate, I think we should proceed with this as part of a housing website.
Mhm.
Harry, since you have the most contact, do you want to set up a meeting with Charlie, or do you want to just wait until we have, permanent treasurer and because that could be many months, so.
I think I'm headed for another conversation with Charlie anyway, because we have the issue of ensuring that there's a mechanism for buy down funds to be available.
Okay,
We're talking about producing them in, basically a little more than four weeks. I need to have that conversation. So I'll just add it to my list.
you could show him this as sort of a model of what we'd like to do. It doesn't make sense, Harry, for the trust to get its own tax ID, does it?
I don't think so. And I know I asked a member of the Orleans Affordable Housing Trust how, they handle their, accounting and bookkeeping obligations. And they said the town does it.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll proceed on the design. And if you would work on how we link
Mhm.
to the town, that'd be great.
Yep. Okay. Okay, any more on this? I'm going to stop sharing here for the moment. As part of that next item, as part of that December 14th conversation with the town administrator, I asked him about budget requests for fiscal 2023. And he said that basically what he was doing was putting together a budget to essentially fund existing town services, and all requests for new appropriations would go to the town meeting, but they would go in separate warrant articles. And so he said, if you do have a request, submit it to me, and we'll include it and see what happens. At the last meeting, we had discussed $5,000 or $10,000 for administrative support. And I think we had decided that now is not the time, given what else is going on, to ask for a substantial bonding commitment from the town. So, I think what we should be considering is to submit a request to the town for administrative support for the trust, so we can get somebody to prepare agendas, do minutes, answer correspondence, that kind of stuff. And in my discussion with Charlie, he felt that there were some people that had part-time obligations supporting town committees who would be interested in additional work, so that there might be the ability to provide the staffing if the funding was approved. So that's where that is. But I think if we're going to proceed with this, we probably ought to have a specific vote to request a specific amount.
I thought we already voted on the 10,000.
We didn't vote.
Oh.
We
It was
talked
on the
about it.
minutes you sent us.
Yep, yep. I think that we talked about it, but we didn't actually vote.
I move to request $10,000 in administrative support for the Housing Trust in the 2023 town budget.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Gary,
Aye.
Elaine,
Aye.
Kathleen,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Sharon.
I,
Chair votes aye, 6 in favor, none opposed. Okay, that gets added to my Charlie list. Status of 90 Freeman Ave RFP. I met with Rebecca roughly on December 15th. I outlined for her the steps that I felt we needed to do to get the 90 Freeman Ave RFP out the door, and reviewed with her the town meeting vote. I gave her the draft RFP. I gave her the a land disposition agreement, which needs some modification. I talked to her about the other RFP for land acquisition, but told her that that was the back burner item, that the 90 Freeman Ave one was the one that we wanted to get out the door as soon as possible. She had originally scheduled a meeting with me on actually tomorrow, but yesterday she texted me and asked to postpone that to January 19th. I think she is out of the office this week. So I did give her Peter Freeman's assessment, email assessing the steps that were necessary to complete this. And so the status of it right now is I am scheduled to meet with her again on January 19th, which I think is a Wednesday, 2 weeks from this Wednesday. So that's where that is. Questions, comments, more? No. Okay, next item, 2021 annual report. I had sent around a real quick and dirty collection of thoughts, and Elaine emailed me with today with her and Gary's thoughts, which I will pop up on the screen. It's very similar to what I sent out, but I assume it's fixing some of my typing issues. So this is very similar to what we sent around, a couple of months ago, actually. And I guess what I'd like is to get reactions to it. And I guess the other question I have is, how do we go about, let me get that down. How do we go about coordinating this with the Housing Authority and Local Housing Partnership, or has that already taken place with this draft?
I could say it was approved by the partnership.
And the Housing Authority has a meeting Thursday
Okay, so
on the agenda.
Housing Authority Thursday.
Mhm.
That's the 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 6th. And Elaine in her email suggested that we, well, let me kind of do this so you can take a look. Here's the first 3 paragraphs.
Harry,
Yep.
is it the 2020 or is it the 2020/21?
Well,
I think this is the 21 report.
it's the 21 report. We had our first meeting on December 18th, 2020.
Right.
And so I did not bother to submit an annual report for the 2020 annual town report.
We might just for I mean, not that it matters that much, but we might put a /21 in there or.
Mhm.
I think that'd be good.
Okay, so this would be, yeah, okay. So where would you like to do that?
Harry, in
Yep.
the header, you have
Yep.
2020/21 highlights or
Okay.
21.
Oh, yes.
highlights?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that,
Yeah. That probably should have said 2021. So let's see. So here's the rest of it.
some kind of little weird thing there.
Where?
On the 4 habitat homes, there's a little squiggle between on and.
There's an
Um,
extra space.
There's an extra space there. That's what that's from.
Yeah.
Should the
Okay.
hearing, I mean, if it's going to be, if we're checking it, should hearing be capitalized or little?
Mm, it should be lowercase.
And as long as we're making corrections, Harry, buy down should be capitalized up above 95 Lawrence. See where it says buy downs, plural?
Yeah, yeah.
We usually do it as 2 words, buy and capital dot space downs.
Like that.
You got it. Mhm.
And looks like we've got an extra space in here too. There we go. Okay. Okay, and here is the last of it. Now this is another. Yeah. I had to figure out how to fix that.
Well, you can just keep it. Just tell it to ignore that.
Yep. It's just that this one's different. There. There. Got it.
Perfect.
Okay. Elaine asked whether we should list the membership of the 3 bodies as part of this report. I mean, typically.
It's in every other report in the book.
Okay, well, we can add that.
Before we go to that,
Yep.
the paragraph that's at the top of this page,
Yep.
the sentence that says a legislative initiative petition was passed seeking special legislation to impose a transfer tax on high-priced home sales.
Period.
And, yeah. There you go.
Mhm. I think this is the result of editing a document that I had not
Okay. And-
proofed
and
carefully.
You've also got was approved, which is hopped.
Yeah. In the next sentence down.
There you go.
Yeah, I was just trying to get some ideas on paper, and then somebody else took it as gospel and edited it. So it has not been adequately proofed.
We're happy to help you with that,
Yes,
Harry.
please. And here's another double space. So subject to proofing and adding the names of the members of all 3 bodies. Does anybody want to change anything or add anything or remove anything?
Should the, when we say the voters have approved a new accessory dwelling unit bylaw to replace the old, should that be capitalized also, affordable accessory dwelling unit bylaw?
It can be, I think, or
Saying since you capitalized the top.
yeah,
one.
we should be consistent, either both or neither.
Well, since it-
Capitalize.
Since
Okay,
it's the name of the bylaw, I would say capitalize.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
okay, and we left bylaw lowercase in one of each of them.
That's fine.
Anything else on this?
Looks
Are we
good.
good? Okay, so we will add the names. And I'll send this off to Rebecca Eldridge once it's been proofed. And what I'll do is I'll send it all out to you the way I have it tomorrow, and that'll give you a chance to note any more typos before I send it off to Rebecca, because she really doesn't need it for, probably sometime in February. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Stop sharing. I gotta remember to save that before I go too far, though. Okay, there we go. We're back. Last substantive item is support for creation of accessory dwelling units. Sharon, do you want to take the lead on this since you've been doing the most?
Yeah. So, in terms of support, we're really talking about financial support, but actually at this point in time, we're still waiting for the development of an affidavit of compliance, which is actually holding me up. Rebecca has requested something, has written something, a draft for Charlie, and he was out last week. And so anyway, that's something that's required before a certificate of occupancy can be granted. And so anyway, it's just some paperwork, but it kind of is frustrating. And also, if someone is interested in looking at the bylaw, the new bylaw, they have to go to the 2021 town meeting warrant. It hasn't been added into the town zoning bylaws yet. And that seems a little strange. It's like, if you want information, you got to really dig. In any case, so those are a couple of my little peeves. But as far as financial support, I haven't done a whole lot, and as I said in my note, I'm really not the person that you want, like, writing any kind of financial memos or anything. But I did do some research around the country, and including Boston, and there's a number of different financial incentive and support plans. And there is also agreement that that because they're expensive to build, you're not going to get very much housing unless there's some help. But so the main forms of housing are of support are the forgivable loan, and that varies from municipality to municipality, with some in California doing it like a 20-year forgivable loan, and you have to rent to people with Section 8 housing vouchers. That's a little maybe onerous. There's other ones that have, like a 15-year forgivable loan. That's the two main models are the forgivable loans and the interest-free loans that are repayable at sale or transfer of the property. And if you own the property for longer than 20 years or something like that, in a number of cases, the loan is then forgiven. So those are the basic models. And I don't know how you go about, writing those things up. Maybe you have to talk to a banker or someone.
Well, I mean, basically, I mean, there are other programs out there with forgivable loans, so that the document, so that prototype documents must exist somewhere, but typically what you would expect is that the property owner would sign a promissory note promising to repay the obligation, just like you do with a mortgage. And it would be secured by a mortgage, which likely would be a second mortgage, because commonly there's first mortgage financing on properties. And, essentially, depending on whether we're forgiving interest or principal, there would be an accounting annually that says, you've demonstrated you rented it affordably. So, this year's principal or this year's interest or some portion of it's forgiven. And then at the end of the term of the loan, the mortgage gets discharged and people, and the property owner is done. I wouldn't have a problem, and the whole question of whether it gets paid off in the event of a sale, I think is an open question. I'd be comfortable having the loan remain in place as long as the affordability obligation remained in place.
Mm.
Since what I'm interested in doing, at least from my own perspective, is buying affordability. And if we strike a deal with somebody to provide them with financing, say for 15 years in exchange for 15 years of affordability, I'd consider it unfortunate if 5 years out, the property owner sold the property and we got the money back and the affordability ended.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Although, as a practical matter, these small units probably can't be rented for much above affordability levels. So maybe getting the thing built, if we get it paid back early, maybe that's not a bad thing. I'm still kind of thinking about this, trying to get around the way to get the most bang for our buck.
Right.
But even if they're small, doesn't mean that they wouldn't be rented seasonally or Airbnb'd.
Oh, right.
Well, but the zoning bylaw requires them to be rented, not seasonally.
Yeah, that's what the affidavit of compliance is all about.
Yeah, so it'd be a question of whether it's rented at affordable rates or to somebody who qualifies for affordable housing, or whether it's rented at market rates if market rates are higher than affordable rates.
Is somebody really policing that?
Well, that's always an issue. I know when. Yeah, go ahead, Sharon. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying it's been a problem in the past with the AADUs.
Yeah, I my own experience was Tim King went to be the town administrator in Westboro Westport, Mass. And it was months before I discovered that he had been administering the AADU program and that nobody was doing it. And all of a sudden it was September and everybody said, where's my, approval for my abatement?
Elaine, didn't we have some sort of conversation at one of the housing meetings about possibly enlisting CDP or somebody to take on a management?
Well, we did talk about it, to have them, certify people. I mean, they have this $1 million grant to do a resource center. So I'm wondering if that could be part of their work for our town. We could potentially be providing some funding for a loan of some sort, but if they could be the ones keeping an eye on that, that would be great.
Sharon,
I mean, at the same time, there are not that many of them, so it's hard to know why they weren't, couldn't have been looked after.
Sharon, thank you so much for doing all this legwork. I thought it was great. And what sort of speaking to what you were just saying is that in Santa Cruz, which is millions of people,
Yeah,
Santa Cruz County and city, they have not issued one of these. They have a report in this. in
yeah, I saw
One
that.
of the attachments, they've never actually issued one of these loans.
Right.
And I don't know if it's because it puts a lien on your property. I can't recall in their scenario if it's deed restricted or they just file a lien, but for whatever, or the cost is simply so much greater than the value of the loan, or
Mhm.
people don't want to rent them affordably. But
Right.
right, how many of these? I'd hate to go through a lot of effort and then find there's no takers. So the question is,
Well, they are being built, you know, across the country. That we know. Whether these programs are being effective. I mean, it might be interesting to talk to the, you know, Boston has the program of the interest-free loan. It might be interesting to talk to someone who's administering that and find out, you know, if they're getting any takers. And how they,
I think that here on the Cape, this is the buzzword in affordable housing. And I think we will have some takers, but I also think we're in a special situation where we're such a resort vacation rental place that unless we think we have a way to manage it, we should try to, you know, to Harry's point, make it as attractive as possible for people without shooting ourselves in the foot.
mhm,
And frankly, I'd rather try this and find out that there are no takers and abandon it than
Yeah.
not try it and miss an opportunity.
Right.
So
Well, at this-
not everything you try works, but if you don't make the effort, you won't find solutions that help.
Because at the very slow pace we are moving at adding any affordable stock to our inventory, even if we got one. I mean, how many affordable houses did we add this year? Not that many.
Last time we offered these types of loans, Elaine, was it 2 or 3 people we had take us up on it?
We had 3. It was only $10,000.
Right,
And
I'm just
that's-
saying that was a smaller amount and yet we had some takers, so.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I
I'm
I
sorry, go
think-
ahead.
this resource center is up and running. That's going to really help us because right now, like I say, I mean, you have to be really dedicated to find any information about it on the town website. And so, you know, once we have this sort of more of a regional clearinghouse that's promoting them and really giving people assistance, this is my hope is what it will do, is providing assistance for people who really don't have any idea how to develop one of these things, but think it might be a good idea.
Mhm.
And you know, it's a little daunting, I can tell you. I finishing up one right now, it's I've learned a lot. But I think for a lot of people that they not even going to put a toe in the water unless they feel like they've got a little more assistance,
Mhm.
both financial and also process
Mhm.
oriented.
Sharon, do you think that from doing it yourself that you could do like a ADU for dummies sort of?
Maybe, but you know, it's been, you know, part of it right now is, I mean, I think those exist out there. There are guides to developing ADUs and they're much more informative than what I could come up with. There's a guy in Portland, Oregon, who's just really like, this is his life. This is what he's made it his profession.
Does he want to move to Wellfleet?
I know. Well, we could probably get him to come out and talk. So, you know, that would be something. But I think, you know, my experience, part of it is that it's such a new program here that, you know, I've been sort of like, and we're, you know, we have this merry-go-round of building inspectors And so, you know, doing it in Wellfleet had added challenges given the times that we're in. I'll just say that.
Mhm. Related, and as I hope this isn't too far off topic, I think it was Elaine, you forwarded me Victor Staley's markup of the ADU bylaw.
Mhm.
Is someone looking at that, or is someone assuming that I'm looking at that, or
Well,
where's that going?
Yeah, I meant, I could have maybe brought it up under the announcements, but
Mhm.
yeah, Victor, in dealing with someone that was doing 2 ADUs, the building inspector didn't see clearly that that was what the bylaw allowed, and reached out to us, and we gave him the intent, and he proposed some really minor, I think, changes to the bylaw. I shared them with the 4 people that drafted it, and Helen just recently drafted his suggestions in. And so I was gonna, I'm not sure what happens with that next. If we feel they're reasonable, does it have to go back to the planning board, to the select board, to the attorney general? What's the process when you make revisions?
It's a zoning bylaw amendment. It follows the same process that adding the ADU language followed, which goes through the select board and the planning board and the town meeting and the AG and so forth.
But what we have is usable as this is going
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as long as somebody else is doing that, I just didn't want to wake up 3 months from now and somebody turn and find out that somebody was assuming that I had taken care of this.
Oh, I was just curious if you felt they were reasonable and that we should. Go ahead.
Yeah, a quick reading to me said that they're relatively minor changes and that really they're more technical or
Well, I
than
think that
substantive.
the switching it to say units instead of unit that's just clarifying. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like the addition of an S, but it makes it clear to the building commissioner that more than one is allowed.
Yeah, and that is his correct title. Under the
Yeah.
zoning act, you can have a building commissioner or an inspector of buildings, but there is no such thing as a building inspector. Who knew?
I just learned.
Okay.
So, can I
think,
one-
yeah, go ahead, Sharon.
Elaine, so we all agree, I think, that the changes are reasonable and clarifying and don't change the intent of anything. And so who will be shepherding it through the process of the planning board and the select board and town meeting and all of that? I mean, you and I are both out of town, so.
Well, I guess we just need to know who to send it to with that. I mean, does it go to the planning board first?
Well, what the statute says is that proposed zoning bylaw amendments are supposed to go to the select board, and the select board is supposed to, within 2 weeks, refer them to the planning board.
Okay,
And the planning board's required to conduct the hearing on them and also deliberate on them as they see fit. And from there, it goes to town meeting. So is Helen, is she actually drafting a town meeting article to make these amendments? Is that what she's doing, or is?
no.
'Cause
no,
that's
just
the
drafted in
ultimate
changes.
product. I'm
Huh?
sorry?
Helen just drafted in Victor's suggestions to the bylaw.
I see.
So, but an article has to be drafted.
Yeah, somewhere along the line, somebody's got to draft an article, and it probably makes sense for the request to go to the selectmen in the form of, we propose these specific amendments to the zoning bylaw, change this word in this section and all that stuff.
And that should happen pretty soon, because as we know, it's a lengthy process.
Yep.
Right, right. I mean, is that something Becky can do for us if we bring it to her? Or does somebody on one of our committees have to be the person?
Thinking back, there was some concern when when the ADU bylaw was originally proposed that the proponents should petition for a town meeting article. I have a concern that perhaps the select board might choose not to put an article in the town meeting warrant. I think that danger was perhaps overstated.
It confused things.
Yeah, and my sense is that if request gets to the select board in some reasonable form, they will be supportive of it. So whether that's done by Becky or whether somebody collects the changes and town council's asked to draft an article. I mean, typically, it happens somewhere in the town, either in the administrative offices or in council's office, and council's ultimately going to see it.
Mhm.
So,
Okay. Well,
but I
Sharon,
think, yeah, get it in as close to final form as possible, and then we'll see who needs to polish it up, whether it's Becky or town council or somebody else.
Did you read Helen's edits, Elaine?
I'm
did you
sorry,
read-
what?
Did you read Helen's edits?
They were as Victor proposed, right?
I don't know. I just,
Yes. Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
we don't want to play operator here.
no, and we're kind of getting off topic. I just wanted to make sure that somebody was paying attention to it. That's all.
yeah, we're working on it.
Okay, good. Back to ADU support. It sounds like we haven't really taken a formal position on this, but it sounds like where we're headed, at least in terms of financial support, is crafting some program where we make a forgivable loan in exchange for a restriction that is contemporaneous in time with the term of the loan, and that the loan is forgiven. And if that's the case, then perhaps the next step is to look for some documents from other programs that implement those types of loans and see if we actually have something specific to talk about.
I think two of ours are still, two of the three that we did are still on the books at Barnstable County, and it should
Mhm.
show the loan agreement. It was Paul Pilcher had drawn up
Mhm.
that loan agreement, but this one isn't forgivable though, so I don't know how different they would be, but I know the CDP, their rehab loan is a forgivable loan.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Actually, the CDP might be a good starting point
Okay.
to ask them on, if they have any boilerplate on something like that.
Yeah,
What do you-
I'm happy to ask them. I just would like to get to a point where we are just working on a proposal as opposed to talking about what we might do if we actually did it.
I'm sorry. I probably should have had that for you, but I'm.
That's all right. That's all right.
I
It's
very
just,
much like the habitat example. It seemed more substantive and specifically geared towards either affordable homeowners or seniors.
that's the repair program, Gary. Is that the one we're talking about?
In the material that you sent that Sharon had put together, there is a program in the city and county of Santa Cruz. They have partnered with Habitat for Humanity.
An ADU for you.
Yes. I think it's the second or third document, but
Okay.
maybe I should ask Kathleen this. Kathleen, do you think there's any interest in the Habitat folks here to look at something like that?
Maybe. I mean, I think there has been some resistance to changing the habitat model. And as the buzzword in affordable housing goes to rentals, and towns keep coming to Habitat and asking for help on refurbishing and repairing and whatever. Perhaps this is a more viable, it's like building single family, single unit dwellings, which is more of what the Habitat model is. So
Right.
perhaps.
Right. These almost look like mini houses, or what do you call
Mhm.
them?
Mhm.
I think if somebody was buying it, it would be a lot easier to sell to Habitat. I think the fact that it's going to be rented might not, but
Well, let's see. Is it an idea that you like, Sharon?
That, you mean having Habitat involved or?
Yes, and that kind of a program that's outlined on that flyer.
I'd have to look at it again more closely.
Okay. All right. But
It was-
if that's something we're doing, either one of us, or maybe Kathleen, since she sits on the board, could just float that up there to them and see if there's any interest.
I mean, Habitat is doing this in Santa Cruz.
Right. Why don't you share that flyer with them and see if there's any interest, Kathleen? Is that
I think we would have to have a little more conversation because I'm not necessarily clear. Who are we helping to build the ADU?
Can you put it up, Harry?
I mean, I have it right here in front of me, but is it like, let's say I want to build an ADU. Are we asking Habitat to come out and help me?
I think there are two qualifiers. One is affordable people in general, people earning less than 80% of the minimum wage who are homeowners. And the second is people in that category who are seniors.
Right, the homeowners are, in this case, are themselves low
Right.
income.
Ah,
And the ADU is
Is affordable.
is affordable, but also helping them to stay in their property.
Right.
I mean, how many of those situations do you actually think we would have?
I don't know.
I think we would have more than you think. Yeah. Actually,
Well, I mean, I think
like 5.
yeah, I mean, I think if it's something that we want to really be serious about asking, then I'm happy to do that.
Well, just float it, maybe.
I can. Habitat's a little bit like a municipality, though. I'm going to float it, and without real specifics, I'm not really going to get much of a, it's not like all of a sudden someone's going to go, yeah, or even if she does, if the executive director says, yeah, I think it's great, that doesn't necessarily move it forward either.
It seems like they could get the specifics from Habitat in Santa Cruz.
Mhm.
The specifics are there.
It's a habitat program funded by the city and county.
So anyway,
Now, I'm not able to lay my hands on that document immediately.
okay, I've got it on my.
Okay, but what I was kind of hoping to do was to kind of come out of this with a couple of action items to work on. And one of which I'm willing to do is to see if I can track down some prototype documents for forgivable loans so that we can actually see what a program would entail.
That would be helpful.
And so I'm willing to undertake that.
I can call the city of Santa Cruz and ask about the program.
Sure.
I mean, only if people think there's an interest.
Well, I think information is useful, and
Yep.
and I will reach out to the program in Boston and just since that's much more local, and see what kind of,
Alcohol can't hurt.
Mhm. Yeah, I think not only getting a forgivable loan example from CDP, but also asking them, they said they were going to reach out to the town, each town about their resource center. But
uh-huh,
I think that's still gearing up, but to let them know, we'd like to hear,
Mhm.
right,
we'd like to really know
Right.
yeah.
when it's possible what they're considering.
If they're looking for guinea pigs.
Right.
Okay. We exhausted this for the evening or?
Yep.
Okay. Next meeting, which at least from my perspective is going to be in February, because I am gone from January 20th to sometime in early February because I have a babysitting obligation, so I can send my daughter and her husband off somewhere without their kids.
So
Nice.
you're gone, but still available if we need
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I'm still available. I'll just be camped out in Maryland instead of in Wellfleet.
Okay.
Well, I'll be camped out, who knows where. So
Yeah.
really
I
camped.
see. So, in February, for Mondays, we have the 7th, we have Valentine's Day, we have President's Day, which is the 21st, and we have the 28th of February.
So I'm going to say next to Valentine's Day.
Okay.
Gary,
And,
Gary, I'll be sure to let your wife know that you were right on top of that.
okay, that's good.
I spent her birthday with you.
Yes.
I spent my wife's birthday with you guys too.
Oh, dear.
We're really popular at that.
Yeah, it was okay.
You want to say
February
the 7th, Harry?
February 7, okay?
Yeah.
Works for me. It works for me as long as I have internet connection. I
Okay.
can't promise that.
If you don't, we'll stumble along without you.
I'm sure.
Yeah, just send me any requests for agenda items. I mean, we'll have continuations of, ADU support.
Online donations.
Online donations.
Status of
uh,
90 Freeman, RFP.
Yep. Yep.
Usual.
Yep. Okay, and anything else that comes along, we may have some action on some other items, who knows?
And so
Okay.
if we get like on these phone calls that we're making, if I get a piece of paper or, something, I'll just send that to you. Is that okay?
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah, that was nice to get this stuff in advance.
Yeah, that's, in terms of running this trust, I'm trying with limited success to be more proactive in getting documents to you beforehand. Although I must admit, I put off doing the December 13th memos until after lunch today.
You did a really good job though, Harry.
Well, thank you.
I didn't find any corrections on either of them.
Okay. Well, that's a segue into the next, I spelled December wrong on the agenda, though.
Can't have everything.
No, you can't. So I guess the remaining item is approval of the December 13th, 2021 open and executive session minutes. So if someone would like to offer a motion with or without corrections and changes.
I thought they were fine, so I would say so move to
Yep.
approve them as presented.
Mhm.
I did send you one correction, Harry.
Oh, you did. I didn't see that, probably because I wasn't
That's right.
lurking on my email. Oh,
On the executive session.
okay. I'll make that change, whatever it is. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, was that Elaine?
Sure.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Gary,
Aye.
Elaine,
Aye.
Kathleen,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Sharon.
I,
Chair votes aye, 6 in favor, none opposed. Motion adopted. And a motion to adjourn. It's 8:20.
ooh, that's a record.
It is. My goal is to do these things in an hour, but who knows?
You're
I'll
getting
move we
close.
adjourn.
Okay, so Elaine, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call, Gary,
Aye.
Elaine,
Aye.
Kathleen,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Sharon.
I.
Chair votes aye, 6 in favor, none opposed. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Happy New
Happy
Year.
New Year,
Mhm.
Yeah.
everyone.
Everybody.
Yep.
Bye.
Good night,
Aye.
all.